Now, from WYDC TV, this is Big Fox News at 10.
Good evening, I'm Anna Manuel. It's Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and Southern Tier advocates are highlighting a message of hope. Our Josh Stuttle was at Elmira City Hall, where city leaders are recognizing victims of domestic violence and highlighting resources available in the area.
Here at City Hall in downtown Elmira, the mayor has declared October a month to remember. Today marks the first annual Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the city of Elmira. For the entire month of October, a purple wreath will be placed in City Hall in remembrance of those who lost their lives to domestic violence and bring awareness to survivors. Mayor Dan Mandel explains.
So what we did here today to recognize that is I did a proclamation declaring this Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the city of Elmira. We want to encourage people that are victims of domestic violence to reach out, get help. And domestic violence basically affects the whole community, okay? It ranges from crimes of harassment all the way up to assault and the most ultimate crime, murder. And it's not going to be tolerated in the city of Elmira.
Catholic Charities has been serving the community for over 25 years. Katie Rhodes discusses the importance of their domestic violence program.
Catholic Charities operates the First Step Victim Services Program, and we operate a 24/7 hotline for anyone who is a victim of a crime, including domestic violence. So we have a heavy focus on helping victims of domestic violence. And so having the city come together and say, you know, this is very important that we recognize October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. That's important for us as a provider because we are serving a lot of folks that are impacted by domestic violence.
Catholic Charities is just one of many programs available in Elmira to help those suffering from domestic violence. Josh Stuttle, Big Fox News, Elmira.
A house fire in Elmira has left one man dead. The Elmira Fire Department says crews were dispatched to a house on East Washington Avenue for a fire on Sunday. When they got to the home, it was completely on fire and they were told a person was still in the house. Crews extinguished the fire and entered the house, finding the man deceased. The cause of the fire is still under investigation. The fire department says there is no evidence of foul play at this time. An intense search is underway in Saratoga County for a 9-year-old girl who went missing during a camping trip with her family at a state park. The FBI is assisting the New York State Police and several other agencies in their search for Charlotte Sena. The child disappeared on Saturday evening while riding her bike in Moreau Lake State Park. That's about 35 miles north of Albany. Authorities say an all-out effort is being made to find the child.
As I mentioned, we have our drones and aviation assets looking from above while our teams are on the ground. We had a bloodhound assigned to this area, several other canines, so I feel confident at this point. We've conducted a search of this park, and we're going to continue with that while we also search every other avenue.
Authorities say it's, quote, quite possible Charlotte has been abducted. Donald Trump is no stranger to legal peril, but unlike many of his other cases, this time the Trump brand is at risk, and the former president isn't going down without a fight. Caroline Shively has that story.
What is a real estate mogul without the real estate? A civil fraud lawsuit could ban Donald Trump from running business in New York, and he could potentially have to hand over the keys to some of his most famous properties.
It's a scam, it's a sham. Just so you know, my financial statements are phenomenal. There was no crime. The crime is against me.
But the former president is defiant, showing up voluntarily to a New York court Monday for opening day of trial. The prosecution accuses Trump, his family, and business of exaggerating the worth of his assets to get better loans and insurance policies.
No matter how powerful you are, no matter how much money you think you may have, no one is above the law.
James is seeking $250 million in penalties and further restrictions on Trump's ability to operate his business in the state.
What we are witnessing is election interference of somebody who is leading in the polls the more they hit him.
The judge overseeing the case ruled last week that Mr. Trump and his associates did defraud banks and insurers, but the trial will resolve other outstanding legal issues, like which specific acts may have been committed. Trump, his oldest sons and daughter are on the potential witness list, but the former president likely won't testify for weeks in a trial expected to last about 3 months.
He's going to try to bring in everybody who was on the other side of a deal with him and ask him, do you feel you were defrauded? And he has that right.
There is no jury in this case, and since it's civil, the judge cannot order anyone to prison. In Washington, Caroline Shively, Fox News.
The government funding fight is over, at least for now. But the feud between Republicans is only escalating. Aisha Hasni has the story.
Quite frankly, I'm sick and tired. I'm sick and tired of the brinksmanship. And so are the American people.
President Biden laying into Republicans on Capitol Hill after a government shutdown barely averted over the weekend. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy had to turn to Democrats to help pass a short-term spending bill, prompting angry backlash from a small group of conservatives in his caucus. Now, at least one, Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, says he'll bring a motion to remove McCarthy this week.
Bring it on. Let's get this over, and let's get focused on what the American people want.
The fight has gotten unusually personal. Gaetz accusing McCarthy of planting stories about him in the media, and McCarthy claiming Gaetz is trying to make a deal with Democrats to elect a new speaker. But there's still broad support for McCarthy among Republicans on Capitol Hill, and they don't want to see a messy leadership fight heading into an election year.
I think Speaker McCarthy has strengthened his hand by showing that he can govern. And so I think that's going to help him if there is any kind of motion to vacate.
Ultimately, most experts expect the Gaetz motion to fail, which should give McCarthy more leverage when it's time to make a new budget deal with conservatives.
Defeating Gaetz will be important to the leadership. It will be important to McCarthy, and perhaps it gives him a little more breathing room.
And if McCarthy can hold on to his speaker's gavel, he'll have just 45 days to pass a budget. On Capitol Hill, I'm Aisha Hasni, Fox News.
The United Auto Workers Union is back on the picket lines for another week. The group has expanded its strike to include additional Ford and General Motors plants. Now, some 25,000 members are on the picket line. One of their main concerns remains the upcoming switch to electric vehicles, which could put thousands out of work. Over the weekend, negotiators for both sides returned to the bargaining table after the union expanded its strike.
With the cost of living going on and everything, that's all we ask, is to help us feed our family and to go with the economic.
You is scaring our workers by repeating something that just is factually not true. None of our workers today are going to lose their jobs due to our battery plants during this contract period or even beyond this contract.
Meanwhile, the UAW did get a win over the weekend. The union reached a tentative deal with Volvo-owned Mack Trucks, narrowly avoiding a strike by about 4,000 workers. A produce company is recalling thousands of cantaloupes over possible salmonella contamination. Eagle Produce LLC says it is recalling 6,454 cases of Candy brand whole cantaloupes. The recall came after a distribution center test by the FDA revealed the cantaloupes could contain salmonella. The products have UPC number 4050 and were distributed between September 5th through the 16th. Your complete forecast is next. Plus, cities across the country continue being inundated with migrants seeking asylum and care. And now officials are saying they are running out of shelter space. We have the latest.
Here's your local stock market update from Big Fox. Now, your Twin Tiers forecast from Big Fox.
Good evening, happy Monday, and happy October. Over the weekend, we did flip over that calendar page, which we did round off the work week with those seasonable conditions, but then the warming trend took hold. Yesterday, our first day of October, we missed out by hitting 80 degrees by just 1 degree, but we did today. Climb through that threshold and into those 80s as we are dealing with summer-like conditions in October. So as we will continue this trend, at least for the next 2 days, we will be keeping an eye on record high temperatures possible for much of the Northeast. We've been watching this heat build from the Central Plains, now working its way to the east, and records have already been smashed off towards west, and that's what's going to set up from our Tuesday into our Wednesday. So we'll keep an eye on that threshold for the Elmira Corning area. But note that if you are more of a fall lover, there are some changes ahead. Now, we'll keep fairly quiet conditions through about Thursday, but then we'll talk about some rain and thunder that will run into our Friday forecast that is going to be associated with a cold front that is going to bring a fall appearance of some cooling temperatures throughout our weekend and into next week. So summer lovers rejoice underneath these gorgeous conditions. We are noting that there is some slight increase to some moisture potential, so that is going to give us some foggy conditions and then some humidity in the afternoon. Nothing that's going to lead to excessive heat, but you'll definitely feel sometimes of some stickiness underneath the sunshine as we watch our high temperatures climb into those mid 80s. So we topped off just around those lower 80s today, so we're talking 2 to 5 degrees warmer than what we were today. So that is edging towards that record status where we are looking at temperatures nearly 20 degrees above normal, as we should be in the upper 60s this time of the year. No, when we know we have the changing seasons, especially spring and fall, we know we can have those swings of warmth, but the swings of cold air can be just as drastic, where we could reflect with nearly 20 degrees for below normal temperatures even by the weekend forecast. So a big swing is ahead. So again, if you are a summer lover, get out and enjoy the widespread sunshine as we watch temperatures anywhere from those low 80s to those mid 80s. We'll keep overnight conditions pretty uncomfortable as well, holding on to those mid 50s. So you could open the windows. Again, this is definitely not as warm as some of our summer days get, but definitely not as much relief as we're typically seeing this time of the year, where we're even dropping into those 40s as an average low. Wednesday will be our last day at some potential records as we look at, again, low to mid 80s underneath abundant sunshine. And then Thursday, we're still mild, but what we'll note is that increasing cloud cover is going to restrict that potential of seeing widespread 80s. Still could maybe have a few isolated spots, but then the cold front that is expected to bring us a season changer is going to set up on Friday, bringing some thunder risk as temperatures stay mild into those 70s, but then we'll have that downward trend of those temperatures as we even will fall into those 50s with some showery weather.